Imagine a typical summer morning in Tallahassee, Florida. The sun rises, birds chirp, and the world awakens. But for one family, June 3, 2023, was anything but ordinary. 12-year-old Lori Paige, full of life and dreams, vanished without a trace. Her father, Andrew Wiley, reported her missing, claiming she had left home overnight with her backpack while he was at work. As days turned into weeks, and weeks into months, the community held on to hope, searching tirelessly for the young girl. But beneath the surface of this desperate search lay unsettling questions. What truly happened to Lori? And could the answers be closer to home than anyone dared to imagine? Stay with us as we delve into the heart-wrenching story of Lori Paige, a tale of innocence lost, secrets unveiled, and a community's quest for justice. It was the kind of neighborhood where nothing ever happened. A place where front doors were left unlocked, where children rode their bikes until the streetlights came on, and where the biggest worry most parents had was whether their kids would eat their vegetables at dinner. But on the morning of June 3, 2023, everything changed. 12-year-old Lori Paige was missing. No note, no phone, no goodbye. Just vanished. Her father, Andrew Wiley, said she must have left while he was at work. Said she packed a backpack. Maybe she ran away. Maybe she was taken. But something didn't sit right. And it wasn't just the detectives who felt it. Her friends, her teachers, even neighbors. They all said the same thing. Lori wouldn't just leave. She was the kind of kid who loved routine, who walked to school with the same group every day, who never went anywhere without texting her best friend first. So where was Lori? And more importantly, who really knew what happened that night? To understand how much was lost, you have to know who Lori Paige was. She was 12. Still that perfect middle ground between little kid and young teen. She liked TikTok dances but still secretly slept with a stuffed bunny. She loved spicy Cheetos and hated math class. She adored her mom's old Paramore CDs but always turned them down when her dad walked into the room. She wasn't the loudest in the class, but she wasn't invisible either. She had friends, real ones. A little group that always sat together at lunch, whispering secrets and laughing about crushes. Lori wanted to be a veterinarian. Or maybe a wildlife photographer. It changed every week, but it was always something with animals. She had a hamster named Bean. She took care of him like he was a baby. And that's the kind of girl she was, tender-hearted but smart, brave but careful. She wasn't the type to wander off into the night. And yet, that's exactly what her father said she did. According to Andrew Wiley, Lori was home alone the night of June 2nd. He worked late shifts, overnight cleaning contracts at a local gym. It wasn't unusual, he said. She'd done it before. She knew to lock the doors. She knew his number if anything went wrong. But when he got home around 7:30 the next morning, she was gone. At first, it didn't seem like a panic. Maybe she walked to a friend's house. Maybe she got bored. Maybe she was mad. Maybe she'd be back by lunchtime. But lunchtime came. Then dinner time. And when the sun went down and she still hadn't returned, he called the police. Within 24 hours, the town of Tallahassee was in full alert. Flyers, social media posts, local news segments. Everyone was asking the same thing. Where was Lori? And just beneath that, a darker question. The kind no one wants to say out loud. Did someone take her? Or did someone close to her know more than they were saying? At first, the story didn't make headlines. Kids go missing every day, and sadly, not all of them get media attention. But as more people heard about Lori, something about her case began to pull at the heart. She wasn't just some name on a flyer. She was someone's daughter, someone's student, someone's best friend. And something about her father's story didn't sit right. People started asking questions. Why didn't Andrew call the police sooner? Why wasn't Lori's mom around? Why would a grown man leave his 12-year-old daughter home alone overnight? Regularly. The police were asking those questions too. They just weren't saying it out loud yet. Instead, they smiled for the cameras. They handed out flyers. They assured the public that every lead was being followed. But behind the scenes, they were digging. Andrew Wiley said Lori packed a bag, that she must have run away. But Lori's best friend said she didn't own a backpack like the one he described, that she had plans the next day, that they were supposed to go to the pool. Detectives checked Lori's phone records. Her texts stopped the night before. No goodbye messages, no posts, no searches, nothing. And that backpack, still in the closet. That's when the whisper turned into something louder. Andrew was brought in for questioning. Not formally, just routine, they said. But you could feel it. The shift in the air. The way detectives leaned in just a little closer. The way they asked the same question 3 different ways. Tell us again, what time did you leave the house? And his answers. They were close, but never exact, never the same. That's when they checked his laptop. And that's when they found it. Searches for how long does it take for a body to decompose in water? Quiet lakes in Georgia. How far can police track a phone in the woods? The history stretched back weeks. This wasn't a panic search after a daughter disappeared. This was something else. This was planning. The truth wasn't just knocking at the door. It was starting to scream. But where was Lori? Even with all the suspicion, there was still one thing missing. Lori. Her body hadn't been found. There was no crime scene, no trace, no evidence that proved anything, just a mountain of doubt. Until nature, in the most unexpected way, revealed what man had hidden. Sometimes the truth doesn't come from a confession or a clue. Sometimes it comes from nature. Storm. A shift in the earth. A gust of wind. Or, in this case, a fire. 10 months. That's how long Lori's mother, Lori's friends, Lori's teachers, her whole world, waited for answers. And in those 10 months the world kept turning. The school year started. The leaves changed. People kept asking, "Have you heard anything about Lori?" But the answer was always the same. No. Nothing. The search area had grown too wide. The woods were too thick. Even when investigators followed Andrew Wiley's digital trail, those chilling searches for lakes and remote woods, they turned up nothing. That part of Thomas County, Georgia. It was like a green wall. Wild. Untouched. Until the fire. It was a routine forest management burn. Nothing unusual. They'd done them before. It clears out overgrowth, resets the land. No one knew that beneath that overgrowth, something was waiting. The flames passed through, low and controlled. But when the smoke cleared, a crew member spotted something. A shoe. Then bones. Then a small, faded bracelet, the kind a little girl might wear, just loose enough on her wrist. They called the local authorities. Then Tallahassee PD. Then FDLE. The site was sealed within hours. It took only a week to confirm what they feared. The remains were Lori's. Her dental records matched. A bracelet was identified by her best friend. The location lined up almost perfectly with Andrew Wiley's phone data from months earlier. But even without those things, they already knew. Because when the call went out that Lori had been found, her mother collapsed in tears. Not because she didn't know, but because she did. She'd known for months. Mothers always do. The arrest came just days later. Andrew Wiley, charged with second-degree murder. He didn't speak at the arraignment. Didn't look up. Just stood there, arms behind his back, as the judge denied bond. It wasn't the first time a parent had been the monster in the story. But that didn't make it any less horrifying. Lori was gone. And the man who was supposed to protect her was the reason she never came home. That week, the town of Tallahassee changed. People who didn't know Lori came to her vigil. A woman brought a stuffed bunny. "My daughter had one just like it," she said, tears in her eyes. A classmate wrote on a poster board, You were my first friend at school. I miss you. The local bakery handed out cookies for free, shaped like little hearts. It was quiet, tender, grieving. Lori wasn't a headline anymore. She was a memory. But even in memory, she brought people together. The courtroom wasn't packed with reporters. There weren't paparazzi outside or live streams blasting the proceedings to the world. It wasn't that kind of case. It was quiet, respectful, heavy, the way it should be when you're dealing with the life of a child. But inside that room, the truth finally came out. Andrew Wiley pleads not guilty. Andrew Wiley sat in the defendant's chair, pale, sunken eyes, shackled at the wrists. He didn't look like a monster. He looked like a man who hadn't slept in months. But Lori's mother, Rebecca Paige, she was there. Eyes red, shoulders straight. And she wasn't looking at Andrew. She was staring at the judge, a jury, the people who had to see her daughter's story and decide what it was worth. Andrew pled not guilty. The prosecution said they would prove otherwise. The prosecution told the story we've come to know. A single father, overwhelmed, frustrated, cold. One who left his daughter alone too often. One who searched for things no parent should ever Google. They said Lori wasn't just forgotten. She was discarded. But the defense told a different story. They said Andrew was grieving, that he panicked, that Lori had died in an accident, and he buried her out of fear. And for a moment, it made people pause. Could that be true? Could it have been an accident? But then came the evidence. The autopsy couldn't give every answer. 10 months in the woods had erased a lot. But there was one thing it could say clearly. Lori hadn't died peacefully. There were fractures to her ribs, bruising on the skull, a broken hyoid bone, a small bone in the neck often damaged in strangulation. And suddenly that defense, that accident theory, it began to crumble. One of the most powerful pieces of evidence didn't come from a forensics lab. It came from Lori's bedroom. Tucked in her desk drawer was a spiral notebook with rainbow stickers. It was her journal. She didn't write in it every day, but what she did write broke hearts. I hate when Dad gets mad. He slammed the door again. I think he's mad I didn't clean the dishes. I was scared. I stayed in my room. I didn't even go get Bean's food. I wish Mom was here. I don't think I'm safe anymore. That line. I don't think I'm safe anymore. No one in that courtroom ever forgot it. When it was her turn, Lori's mom told the jury about the girl she once rocked to sleep. She told them about Lori's fear of the dark. How she would crawl into bed when thunderstorms rolled in. She talked about their custody battle. How Andrew had gotten full custody a year before because she had relapsed. How she was clean now. Had been for 9 months. But it was too late. She said, I was supposed to protect her. And I wasn't there. But I will protect her now. I will speak for her now. For most of the trial, Andrew had been stoic, blank, just watching. But when Lori's diary was read aloud, something broke. He covered his face. He wept, loudly, messily. His attorney leaned over to comfort him, but the room didn't move. Because for the jury, it was too late. Because if you loved her so much, why did you leave her out there? It took just under 4 hours. The jury found Andrew Wiley guilty of second-degree murder. When the judge read the verdict out loud, there were no cheers, no gasps, just silence. Andrew lowered his head. Rebecca Paige closed her eyes and whispered something no one heard. Maybe it was Lori's name. You'd think sentencing would feel like closure, like a final breath after a year of drowning in grief. But the truth is, there's no such thing as closure when it comes to your child. There's only surviving the aftermath. The sentencing hearing. On the morning of sentencing, the courtroom was filled with a different kind of silence. Not tense, not anxious, just quiet. Like everyone already knew what the outcome would be. Andrew Wiley sat in the same spot he had for the entire trial. This time he looked smaller, thinner. He didn't meet anyone's gaze. Rebecca Paige stood when her name was called. She didn't bring notes. No speech written on paper. She spoke from her chest. She said, "You took her away from me. You took her from her friends. You took her from every birthday she never got to have. But you don't get to take her light. You don't get to take the way she loved. You don't get to take her laugh from my memory. She was kind. She was silly. She was mine. And I forgive you. Because holding on to hate won't bring her back. But I'll never forget what you did." The judge handed down the maximum sentence allowed under state law for second-degree murder. Narrator somber. Life in prison. No chance of parole for 30 years. Andrew didn't cry this time. He just nodded. And they took him away. And then it was over. No more court dates. No more investigators. No more reporters. Just silence. And grief. And the long road of learning how to live in a world where Lori Paige no longer exists. Rebecca couldn't bring herself to pack up Lori's room. She'd go in sometimes, sit on the bed, smell the pillowcase, run her hand across the glittery notebook still lying on the desk. She said, "Some days I go in there to feel close to her. Other days, I can't even open the door." Lori's cat, Bean, stayed with Rebecca. For the first few months after Lori went missing, Bean would meow at the front door around sunset. Just sit there, waiting. After Lori's body was found, the cat stopped doing that. But it never stopped sleeping in her bed. Lori's elementary school created something beautiful in her memory. They planted a small flower garden on campus. Kids painted rocks with her favorite colors, purple and teal, and wrote things like, "You were funny," and "I miss your stories." Every spring the garden blooms. It's quiet, but alive, just like she was. Rebecca started a petition to push for stricter laws around child custody and neglect. She called it Lori's Law. It didn't bring Lori back, but it made sure people heard her story. And maybe one day it'll help keep another child safe. Because when Lori wrote, "I don't think I'm safe anymore," no one should ever have to write that. She would have been 12 this year. Middle school. First real crush. First school dance. Maybe braces. She was just starting to become Lori Paige. Not just the kid who loved stickers and silly socks, but a whole person. And then, it stopped. Her teachers said Lori had a wild imagination. She once turned a spelling assignment into a comic strip about a space chicken who saved Earth from a broccoli invasion. She wrote in the margins of her notebooks, drew hearts around the names of her friends, doodled tiny cats. She said she wanted to be an author, or maybe a vet, or maybe both. That's the thing about kids, they still believe they can be everything. And Lori, she was everything. At least, she was about to be. It's hard not to imagine where she'd be now. Would she have dyed her hair purple? Started a YouTube channel for drawing cats? Would she have made the volleyball team, or hated gym class altogether? Would she still sleep with Bean curled at her feet? Would she have forgiven her dad someday? If things had gone differently? We'll never know. And that's the real tragedy. Because Lori Paige didn't just lose her life. She lost every version of it she might have had. Each year on Lori's birthday, her mom organizes a candlelight walk. They call it Light for Lori. Kids carry flashlights and wear her favorite colors, purple and teal. They walk the school track together. No speeches, no news cameras, just people who remember her. And in the middle of the track, they place flowers and letters. Notes like, "You were the funniest person in math class. I still have the drawing you gave me. I miss you." Lori may be gone, but her voice, it's still here. In the stories her friends tell. In the laughter she sparked. In the silence her absence created. She lives in the way her mother fights for safer custody laws. She lives in the garden that blooms every spring. She lives in every parent who hugs their child a little tighter after hearing her story. We talk a lot about justice, about trials and verdicts and sentences. But maybe justice isn't just a courtroom word. Maybe it's what we do afterward. How we carry someone's story forward. How we make sure they're never forgotten. Lori Paige was more than a case. She was more than a victim. She was a little girl who loved cats, wrote stories, and dreamed big. And even though her life was short, her light was bright. If you like our video, like, share, and subscribe my channel for more real-life true missing person stories.